about to learn the law, the hashkafa, the philosophical uh, basis, if you will, of Shemitah and what we can learn from it. Okay, Shemitah. Let's just understand something. As I said yesterday, I think it was. We're going to have Shemitah as of this Rosh Hashanah. This Rosh Hashanah is going to start the Shemitah year, and is going to go until the next Rosh Hashanah. So it's a very timely subject. What happens is the Torah instructs us in Bahar, in Parshat Bahar, which is in the last section of Leviticus. It says, Hashem spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, saying, and the rabbis ask, why does it have to tell us? He spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai. He got everything from Sinai. What's going on is the Rashi explains that just as all the not only did we get the general rules, we also got what the rules mean, what we call the pratim, the particulars about the rules. So also when it comes to Shemitah, do we get the same thing? Okay, so that's why I have to introduce it by Bahar Sinai, and it says, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you will say to them, when you come to the land that I am giving to you, the land will rest a Sabbath for Hashem. 6 years you shall plant your fields, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyards, and you will gather in its produce. On the seventh year will be the Sabbath for the land, and the Sabbath for Hashem, that your field you will not plant, and your vineyard you will not prune. The aftergrowth you will not reap, because if you would reap, that's showing ownership. So let's say what's going to happen is in your vineyards, you still have grapes growing. Just because you're not doing anything, grapes still grow. So you cannot act as an owner of that. Rather, you just have to take what you want. You can always take a grapevine, and it can take from the grapevine, but you can't reap it like normal. And so, like I said, that's aftergrowth and your vineyards. Also, you can't do this with because it's a Sabbath for the land. This is the Sabbath for the land, and this will be a Sabbath for the land for you to eat, for you and your servant and your maidservant, your paid worker, the one who dwells in your land, and the animals, the wild animals, and the domesticated animals, and the undomesticated animals that are in your land will all be eating from the same tavua. Everybody's going to eat from the same thing. Okay, so what Hashem is telling us is that during Shemitah, we get a year off. Now let's understand what I've always said about Shemitah. A year off sounds great, but let's face it, if we're not doing anything to our land, we are losing. Well, first of all, have to work doubly as hard when we can start planting in the 8th year. We have to take away all that stuff that was the overgrowth. Number 2, financially, I've given up my income. Okay, in the world of, as we know today, there's a global, global economy. So we're all depending on one another. So I'm growing something. Let's say I grow Jaffa oranges, fine. So now I'm exporting them to the other countries. Well, while I'm producing the stuff, you're buying it because you like Jaffa oranges. But now I take a year off. You want oranges. Guess what? You're not going to wait for me to grow my Jaffa orange. You're going to get it from somebody else. Somebody else is always doing something, right? They always want to undercut the other guy. This is a big chance that they get. I can get customers like crazy because the crazy Jewish state doesn't want to do it. God is telling them not to. So let's chaparein. They would argue. Let's grab their customers. And so I have to say, wow, my customers are going to go. Can I really afford that sort of thing? Really, that is a challenge that Shemitah is presenting. Another challenge. Let's say not everybody follows Shemitah. Let's say let's not make it Jews. Let's say you have a non-Jewish neighbor. Okay, non-Jews aren't obligated to keep Shemitah. The only place we're keeping Shemitah is in Eretz Israel. That's the only place. And nowhere else do we keep Shemitah. We'll find out why as we go, but take that as a given. So only in Israel. So I have a non-Jewish neighbor who has his hotel and everything else. He's maintaining his land. He's doing very nice. right? He has no obligation not to. I, on the other hand, have my motel right across the street from him, and my grass is overgrown, and because I can't mow the lawn during Shemitah, and I can't plant my stuff. It's just wildlife all over the place, okay? If you are the customer, who are you going to go to? We all go by looks. We're going to go to the well-manicured place and not to the one that's overgrown. So again, I have to put up with a lot of stuff just to fulfill the law. So now what's the law really all about? Okay, so now the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, I believe it was, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that the reason for Shemitah is so that we realize that the land belongs to Hashem. Think about this. God is giving us the land, so therefore, when He's a landlord, and He's making His mark that He is a landlord. So He says, 60 years you shall plant the land, but on the seventh you give it a rest. Now, just again, put this into our day. If I rent out an apartment, and I decide I don't like the color of the walls, so what I do, I go down to Lowe's or whatever the other places would be. I pick up some paint, and I like purple paint, and I paint my walls purple. Very nice, okay? My landlord decides to come in to visit me and says, what did you do to my walls? What do you mean? They're my walls. I rented the apartment. So my landlord will look at me very nicely and say, you're a little insane. But I'll let you keep it right now. It's not a problem. He has two choices. He can say, I'll let you leave it, but understand something. When you leave, I want it back to the original color, or you lose your security deposit, because you have no right to do this without my express permission. Or he can say, do it now, because he has no right without my express permission. Okay, so also Hashem is showing he's the landlord. That's really one of the concepts, major concepts of Shemitah, that the land belongs to God and He's just giving it over to us. So Sefer Chinuch, he presents a couple of reasons. And again, to really understand what he's saying, let's look at the original words. You don't have them. He, the Sefer Chinuch, who wrote the book in order for his child to review the laws of the week, as it were, from the parsha, and so he gave reasons. That was one of the things he wanted his kid to always remember and to study these things. So he says the reason for this mitzvah of Shemitah is to fix in our hearts and to strengthen our thoughts of the matter of God, the renewal of the world. That namely in 6 days God created the world, and the 7th day He rested. By resting on that day, it's we are living proof that God did that, and we remove from ourselves the thought that the universe was eternal, like Aristotle and his friends would believe. He's not saying Aristotle, I'm just saying that that's what it was. There is a concept even to this day that the universe is eternal, and so by us resting on the Sabbath, just in general on the Sabbath, so we are giving living testimony that we don't accept that we know that God was the one who created the world in 6 days and rest on the Sabbath. Okay? And then, by the way, I'm not going to get stuck to the 6 days. Just understand that even according to the Midrashim, it doesn't really have to be 24/7, 24-hour days. It could be eons. It could be 24 hours. Fine, whatever that is. Okay, there's enough Midrashim out there to make everybody comfortable. But what happens is, so now that is the main reason that we have. So also here, where God is again telling us not to work in the 7th year, would be part of that whole thing, that God is in control of the land and making it produce what it's going to do. If He says that in the 6th year there will be a bumper crop, we have to trust God for that too. So now, that's what he's saying, that a person realizes that all of the produce that the land produces is not from the farmer's own doing, but rather from Hashem. Also, the second concept that we learn from Shemitah is a concept of vatranut, which means the ability to forgive or compromise. Right here on the second page. You're on the one by
I don't have the second page.
I'm sorry.
You mean,
This page.
So that's what
Right there. Right there.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And finally, the third one is by abandoning all of one's produce during Shemitah, one develops the trait of bitachon, of what we learned yesterday in faith and trust. Okay, where bitachon means I'm actively putting into to practice what I'm preaching. I trust God, so therefore, if God tells me that I have to not plant during this year and I have to decease from all activities, I do it, and I'm showing bitachon. I'm showing trust in Hashem. Okay, so that helps me to develop, because again, when I'm looking at my field and I'm seeing my money dwindle and I'm seeing my competitors get all of my customers, I have to believe, truly believe, that this is for my good. And I have to be strong enough to go with it. If I'm not, I'm going to look for every single leniency possible. Okay? Or break the law. Whichever the case is going to be. That's what the Sefer Chinuch says. You have Rav Moshe Alshich, who quotes the first Rashi in Torah. What's the first Rashi in Torah? The Torah says, in the beginning Hashem created the heavens and the earth. Rav Yitzchak says, why did the Torah begin with this verse? It really, since it's a book of laws, should have began in the book of Exodus, where in Parshat Bo, with the first commandment to the Jewish people, namely, that Nisan should be the first month for the Jewish people. Okay? The reason it didn't start there, Rabbi Yitzchak tells us, is because it's to telling the power of that Hashem has, and also when the non-Jews come to us and say, you stole the land from its original inhabitants, you're a bunch of thieves, we are to answer to them, excuse me, it says in the Torah, in the beginning Hashem created the heaven and the earth, which means that Hashem is the creator of this world, which means he owns the world. So it's true that he let the Canaanites be there at first. But just as any good landlord, he can allow anybody to live there. He can also evict the people and let some other people come in. It's not, we didn't steal anything. Hashem is the owner. Hashem put us there, promised us the land.
I don't think so.
Oh, Rabbi Alshich was prepared for that. So he said, the Shemitah further concretizes our claim to the land, because when the world sees that we can take a year off from farming the land, and Hashem nevertheless provides for us, it's the ultimate proof that Hashem gave the land to us. Think about what he's saying, the veracity of that statement. If here I am working everybody rotates their crops, they do what they have to do, they fertilize the land, and they pray like heck that the rain is going to come in the proper time. Nonetheless, nobody's skipping a whole year and taking a vacation, learning Torah, and going on to the Galilee. Okay? You're not doing that. But we are commanded to do that. And when we do that, and people see that we didn't skip a beat, that's proof that Hashem gave us the land, because no other land can pull that off. Not even America with our surplus can pull that off. Show me that farmers will take a year off.
Well, the whole
farming community.
The farmers may not, but that isn't the land.
No, I'm saying let the land. Show me where they can get such a bumper crop that if we weren't having to spend for imports into our country, that we could survive if we didn't plant for a whole year. We let everything just grow. Could we survive?
No.
I don't know.
We could.
Yeah? How many years? Again, from our land, or because cause I'm not so sure we could. Because we're looking at the surplus. How long will the surplus last?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I don't think it'll last
we export a lot.
Correct. I'm saying I don't think.
We pay for people to not grow.
Correct. I understand. Because we want to keep the prices high. But what I'm saying is, if people would stop, everybody take the year off, which we're not far from doing, we'll see. But if everybody really took the year off, that, what's going to happen to the country? The country would go into disrepair. You couldn't do anything. I don't think we'd survive. And that's sort of Alshich's point. You have this country that's totally dependent upon, themselves, and they're taking a year off because they've got a bumper crop which is going to last them a year and a half. In reality, a year and a half, sometimes 2 years, 3 years, depending on what it's going to be. So that was what his reason for Shemitah was. Again, we're looking at how can God, what's the hashkafa, what's the philosophy behind what Hashem is doing to us. Rav Meir Simcha of Devinsk, he writes that when someone gives a gift out of the goodness of his heart, he wants to see the recipient enjoy it. God gave us the land and wants us to benefit from it. But at the same time, take a year off in order to recognize that Hashem is actively involved in the benefit we receive the other 6 years. Because what will happen is, if we never take the time off, we think it's all us. We delude ourselves into that belief. That is because my genius, and I knew how to plant it, and it was this, and I beat the market, and so on and so forth. I timed it perfectly. No, it has nothing to do with us. We have to do what we can. No question about it. We have to do, as I always said 1,000 times, we have to do our stadlus. We always have to endeavor to do what we can do. But Hashem is doing the rest. If you look at, even here when we have to plant our grass, I can throw grass seed down all day long. I can follow all the rules. And I can still get my crabgrass. Okay?
Amazing, isn't it?
But, I still get my weeds. Why? Because Hashem is saying to me, not happening. Do all you want. It's not going to happen. So I can either start yelling and buy millions of dollars worth of weed killer, or just say, Rabbi Shalom, I'm going to mow my lawn. You do what you want. My front lawn is beautiful. My back, I don't care. Who cares? Who sees it? But, but still, that's what it is. Do the trees grow? Don't the trees grow? It all depends what Hashem wants. I can do what I do what I think I should. I read all the internet mishigas of what to do. But in the end, who knows? It's all up to Hashem what's going to happen. And when I understand that, I don't get so upset when it doesn't work out right. Okay?
So you haven't used the spray around the pool?
No, I haven't touched it yet. It's still in the nose for prolonged right now. I have to still get to the nose. But I'm just saying that's the concept that Rav Meir Simcha Davinsky. And by the way, I want to give credit before I forget. The source pages are written up by Rabbi Josh Luke from YU. So I don't want
similar format. I recognize.
Yeah, right. So there's all the stuff. He does a good job bringing it down. The comments that are not in this paper, that's from me. Okay. So okay. So the Rambam, he wrote that one of the reasons for Shemitah is, and this is the amazing thing that the Rambam says. He says this in More Nevuchim, that Shemitah, one of the reasons is that the land benefits from a year off. It's actually more productive by taking a break. Okay. So all scientists would love him for this sort of thing. And you say it's true, but again, if it's miraculous, what do I need it for? And furthermore, he has a couple of questions. Flug has a couple of questions. One is, why then is there a punishment for the failure to observe Shemitah? It was only to benefit the land. So what do I care? I decide not to benefit the land. Why should Hashem punish me for doing that? If you tell me that is because you have to build up your fear of Hashem and your trust in Hashem, I understand. By not doing it, I'm not showing my bitachon. Fine, you can punish me. But here it's just to improve the land, so I choose, I'll fertilize it myself. Thank you very much. I'll put it down. I'll help you out, God. Everybody gets tired here. Okay, fine, I'll help you out. No, that's number one. And then, why is it only applying Eretz Yisrael? It should apply everywhere. This ruling, this concept of it helps the land replenish itself is true. We all know it. That's why we rotate our crops. If you plant the same crop every single time in the same place, it's not going to grow well by the fourth year, not even the sixth year. By the fourth year, it's already depleted.
Starting to.
So Rav Shlomo Ephraim Lunchitz, I guess how you say it, presents the difficulty with the Rambam's suggestion, and then suggests that normally farmers plant for 2 years and then 1 year they don't plant. Hashem didn't want the Jewish people to forget who is controlling their success. So Hashem told them to follow a different schedule, to plant for 6 years in a row, without a break, and only then take a break. Furthermore, the yield of the 6th year, which should be the worst, is going to be double a normal year. That was Hashem's promise to us. And so, the Flug says, perhaps this is what the Rambam meant by saying that the land benefits. It is not a scientific phenomenon, but rather an expression of the special divine intervention on the land of Israel. So what we're hearing is, why is it only in Israel? Because that's the only place that Hashem chose to have His divine presence dwell. Okay? Any other land, even though Hashem fills the world and the universe, still, it's not this special place. It's not the island, if you will. Okay? This is the island that Hashem wanted. This is where the center of the world, center of the spiritual, however you're going to look at that. That is, Israel has a major connection, which everybody in reality recognizes, which is why Israel is always in the news. It's always the center of everything. It's smaller, it's a little bigger, or I think it's a little bigger than Rhode Island, that's what they always say. Yet it's...
Always.
I never hear of Rhode Island in the news. Okay? I don't hear of Texas in the news for the most part.
Yeah, they calmed down a lot.
Okay, but so, I hear about some parts of Sultan in this, but we'll talk about that.
Some parts of Texas.
Okay, so now, when it comes to Shabbos, so the word used, the Torah itself uses the word Shabbat to describe Shemitah. Additionally, the 6 days of work following by the seventh day of rest, they have obvious parallels to the Shemitah. So the Sefer Chinuch writes that the message of Shabbat is to commemorate the fact that Hashem created the world, like we said before. In that sense, Shemitah serves the same purpose. This ties the concept of faith, which was discussed before, and nevertheless, we still there are other parallel messages that applied to both Shabbos and Shemitah. What are they? Here we go, Rabbi. So the Ibn Ezra says, Shabbos and Shemitah as a time of reflection. That's how he has it. You have Hakel, which is performed at the beginning of the Shemitah year. The Torah says that the purpose of Hakel, which is when we get all the Jews together in Eretz Yisrael, the president, not the president, but I think the Nasi, I guess you would say president. He reads the book of Devarim, the Deuteronomy, aloud to the people, and everybody's supposed to listen. That's where you have the curses, you have all the... No, but I'm saying the beginning is a little history, Devarim. So you have the history of what we did, then you have some laws, and then you also have at the very end the curses, and then how Hashem loves us, the Sam Vayelech, we're still here, and finally the brachot. Okay? So he's supposed to do that. What's the purpose of Hakel? The Torah said, Aman Yilmadu, the Yerod Hashem, in order that you should learn to fear Hashem. So Ibn Ezra on that pasuk suggests that is the specific focus of learning during the Shemitah year. During the Shemitah year, since we can't plant, what do Jews do? We have to learn Torah. It's a forced year. It's the year you're enlisting in the culled system. Okay, we're supposed to learn Torah, whatever level we can, and it's supposed to, and as a result, make our connection to Hashem much stronger than it is during the other 6 years. Even though during the other 6 years we're still doing Daf Hayomi, or whatever the case we're going to do, studying for the Parsha, or we're doing Musar, or we're doing whatever little we can do. When it comes to, we don't have time. We really have a limited time as what we can get in, and so you do it. When it comes to the Shemitah year, you have 1 full year of nothingness. You can't claim, I have to do my fields. You can't claim anything about the field. Remember, we're an agricultural society at that point. You can't claim that. So what happens is, now you're released from all that, and Hashem has, but Hashem as the landowner and as our sovereign ruler told us, it's not just a year off where you can go watch TV all day long, or the internet, or go see Frozen. It's not what you're going to do. Frozen is a new movie that they're saying. Well, actually, it's an old movie, this one. But it's from the kids. It's a cartoon.
Okay.
But you're not allowed to do that. What you're supposed to do is study my Torah. Come closer to me. Understand what it's all for me. That's the purpose, okay? So now, when it comes to his comments on Shabbos, he notes that we can extrapolate from the Shemitah to Shabbos. Just as Shemitah is a time of learning and reflection because we don't work, so too Shabbos is a day of learning and reflection. He's not the only one to say this. Many people say this. The reason that we have Shabbos is it says that we're supposed to walk into Shabbos seeing everything as if it was completed, even though we have work that's going to come Saturday night or Sunday morning. On Shabbos, we're not allowed to think of work. We're supposed to assume that, we're supposed to see it as if everything was done. So even on Friday, you're writing it to Shabbos and you say, oh my God, I didn't do blah, blah, blah. Come Shabbos, I don't want to hear about it. Which is why when people, when I was in Maine, so we had somebody working from the JCC. She actually comes to visit there once in a while, and people would always ask a question about the JCC on Shabbos. And I said to her, you should tell her, you should tell people, I don't talk about my work on Shabbos. Period. End. I'm not allowed to. And that would have shut everybody out. Although they would have said, you're a fanatic. But nonetheless, people have to learn, you don't speak about business. You have to act as if it's not there anymore. It's all completed. Come, talk to me Saturday night. Talk to me Sunday. That's when I'm back on duty. Okay?
It's hard to get that concept because we're so work-oriented.
But if you go to classes and you would study Torah and so on and so forth, if we could get the society to do that, they would reconnect with God. Now what happens is, if I reconnect with God on Shabbos, the assumption is that that's going to carry me through the week, and the next Shabbos I'm going to be at a higher level, and then I go up. Okay. I shouldn't always be starting at ground zero. Okay. At the same time, when coming on Shemitah, he says that Shemitah is like Shabbos with all its benefits. Fine. So the Rav Tzvi Kalisher writes that every so often we need to take a break to focus on our service of Hashem. This can be in the form of learning Torah, and for those who can't fully dedicate themselves to Torah learning, they can engage in other activities that improve society, such as the building the infrastructure of the land of Israel. He wrote this, and approximately he's living from 1795 to 1874. Apparently he's running into Herzl. I'm not sure what was going on there, but he was a stickler of a Zionist from what you can see from what he's writing. He wanted to build the infrastructure of the land. Okay, how he was going to do it, I have no idea what he was suggesting. But it's interesting that he said, if you can't dedicate yourself, so now let's build up Israel, infrastructure-wise. Now that could also be taken to mean that I can just donate. I don't know. He wasn't not sure where he was living. You have the Abarbanel, who's way before him. He presents a similar approach to the Ibn Ezra. He suggests that the number 7 is a constant reminder that the average lifespan is 70 years. There is a number. How does he know this? Because it says in Tehillim that by strength you'll live, normal life is 70 years, by strength 80 years. This is one of we say it every Shabbos actually. This is why the Yom Tovim, the counting of the Omer, Shabbat, Shemitah, are all associated with the number 7. The purpose of Shemitah is to remind us that we should make the most of our time and engage in Torah mitzvot rather than frivolity. Okay, so again, all these things are signposts to get us back on the way. I'm ordering you to step down. What's it called? Back down. Stand down. Stand down on Shabbos. Stand on Shabbos. Stand down on Shemitah. It's not your time. This is my time. I order you to be with me and to love me for it too. Okay? But that's the straight out orders we're getting from God. Okay? For those who went to the Kabbalah, so you have the Ramban who writes, and this is what I was saying before, 6 days of creation correspond to the 6,000 years of this world. He was, again, based upon Tehillim and other places, but he's talking a very Kabbalistic way, that a day is not necessarily 24 hours, although the Ramban also says in that same part, if we have to believe it's 24 hours, okay, but then he goes on, that's his pshat, but then he says, according to those who understand the secrets of Torah, okay, then he goes into, it could be 1,000 years, okay. So either case, it's in the Bereshis when he writes that. It says, both Shemitah and Shabbos represent this concept, which is why failure to observe these laws has serious consequences. So Rabbi Yitzchak Arama adds to this that the purpose is to teach us that everything in this world is temporal. This is why the Eved Ivri, the Hebrew slave, goes free. Because what's going on? I have a person, this Eved, this Jew, who stole something or just didn't have enough money to support himself. So either he sells himself or the court sells him. When he sold to the buyer, so the buyer has to treat him properly. It's the strange thing about Jewish law is, let's say there's only one bed, the slave gets the bed. If there's, you have to give the slave the Eved Ivri time to daven. He gets off Shabbos. He's really a paid worker, and which is why it says the rabbis say that when you acquire a slave, you acquire a master. They say something about your wife for the same reason, though, because when I'm acquiring my wife, so I have to support her in all ways, and she gets the best of everything. It's not that I'm supposed to get the best and she gets the leftovers. So that's why, again, where it says when you acquire a wife, you acquire a master. In all those cases, you are acquiring somebody that you need to take care of. Okay, it's not something that, unlike slave mentality here, where I could beat you and do what I want with you and rape you, and there's something you had no rights. Here, for a Hebrew slave, he had all the rights in the world. Okay, for the Canaanite slave, if you would beat him and you take his eye out, he's free. So they also had rights. So everybody had their rights. It wasn't just your chattel. There's a lot of things that go on with this. But so, like I said, Aram is saying this world is temporal, which is why if it goes free, it's not eternal. It's after 6 years, he's free. So if I bought the Eved, by the way, in the 6th year of the Shemitah cycle, 7th year, he goes free. So I have to pay accordingly. I'm not going to pay big bucks, so I'm going to lose somebody in the year. Okay? Both Shabbos and Shemitah remind us that there's something represented by the 7th that is more special than the other 6. The ultimate 7 is Olam Haba, the world to come, because that's the 7th heaven. We always talk about 7th heavens, that would be Olam Haba. Fine. The Abarbanel presents the Ramban, Nachmani's opinion, and notes that this approach doesn't fit well with the Rambam's general Hashkafa. Abarbanel feels, however, that the Rambam's outlook on this matter is the minority opinion. And again, his opinion was that the reason we have Shemitah is to let the land gather its strength again. Now, here we come to so far, you had 3 concepts. One is Emunah in Hashem and Bitachon. That was one major thing. Then the question was why are we calling it Shabbos? So we're equating the Shabbos and Shemitah, telling us what we're supposed to do during the Shemitah, and on Shabbos, namely, learn Torah and reconnect or connect stronger with God than we were before, not just to rely upon things. And then we had some concepts of the Kabbalah coming into this, that there's some mystical connection with the number 7 and so on and so forth, and how we have to I just lost it. It was here it is. How we have to understand that everything is in the world is temporal and so on and so forth. That we have to understand. Now we come to a more practical thing, and it says we have to teach us how to help the poor. Because we have Rav Avram Saba, he writes that one of the goals of Shemitah, one of them, is to allow the wealthy to see the perspective of the poor. How we do that? The poor are always looking to Hashem to figure out how to put food on their table. During the Shemitah year, we want the rich to experience that so that they will think about the poor during the years of wealth. Because what happens when a person makes money, and this applies to whoever makes money, we all assume that the money that we got, we deserved due to our hard work. Unless I'm one of the lucky ones that goes to the supermarket, buys a quick pick, or even takes the time to actually think of the numbers, and I put it in, and I win millions of dollars.
Yeah, think big.
Millions, $500 million. Unless I'm that person, okay? For the most, which I say is all from God. At that point, I won't admit it was mamash, a miracle. The odds against it were 175 billion to 1 that I should win, whatever those odds are. Okay, but somebody has to win, as my mother would used to say. Guess why not let it be me? Okay, but still, that is pure Hashem giving me the money, and I have to put up with all the torture that entails. Fine, you can torture me all you want. Okay, okay, right. Okay, but when I, on the other hand, go to work and I make my investments in the stock market, and I hire the guy to do the investment in the stock market, what will I say? It's all me. It's all my money. Now somebody comes to me and says, do you have $1? And what do I answer them? What, you don't know how to work? You look healthy. Go to work. You want a job? Go to Walmart and do some heavy lifting. They'll pay you $10. They'll pay you $10 an hour already, or whatever the minimum wage is. Go work. What do you need me for? You're a bum. Okay. Or do I say to them, okay, yeah, I understand your plight. Yeah, wish I could do more for you. What do you do? Okay. And so this whole year, again, you have to imagine, I have a vineyard. I have my apple orchard. I have my Jaffa oranges. And this poor person is suddenly saying they want an apple. So they go to my vineyard, which I've slaved over 6 years, and they start taking their apples, and they bring their families. They're all trampling over my beautiful lawn. Okay? What's going on here? And I'm just supposed to say, go ahead. That is the ultimate understanding of what the poor person is going through. Where you have to think, they can ruin me.
They'll strip the place like a locust.
Right, they'll ruin me. I won't have anything for next year. What am I going to do? That's the ultimate bitachon you're going to get. But you're also going to understand what a poor person is. You're going to say, now that when the years of wealth come back, maybe you start working and they come to you, you're going to remember how you felt when you saw everybody taking your stuff, what you considered yours, and because you were ownerless, you couldn't do anything. You were with everybody else. Sorry, that's it. You have no ownership for this. That's what Hashem is saying to us. You have no ownership for 1 year. You are like everybody else. Your money is worthless to me. Okay? That's Rabbi Saba who said that. Rabbi Avram Sofer follows a similar approach and writes, when a farmer has no source of parnasa, no source of livelihood, and during these hard times, he allows the poor to eat his produce. It is the greatest fulfillment of the after that you should love your neighbor like yourself. Okay, again, here I'm looking, what am I going to do? And somebody else is coming in, and I don't chase him away with a shotgun. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, Rabbi Shamshon Fall Hirsch, he says like this. He combined the issues. He discussed why the malachot, what the forbidden forms of work on Shabbat have avot and toldot. Avot are the major categories. Toldot would be the subcategories of those major categories on a biblical level. And malachot of Shemitah do not. They don't have avot and toldot. Okay, so he suggests that the foundational principle of Shabbat is to cease being creative in order to remember the creations of Hashem. Anything creative is prohibited. And the differences between the major categories, the avot, and the toldot, the subcategories, is merely a matter of technicality. In other words, if I would break one of the toldot, I still would be punished. It's a punishment involved. I did something wrong. Okay? So now the foundational principle of Shemitah is to recognize that our land really belongs to Hashem, and we're just stewards. So in order to accomplish this, we have to abandon the land, and by doing so, and demonstrating that the land should not produce fruit naturally, we have accomplished this goal. There's no need for toldot. So that's why he says that's why we don't have any subcategories when it comes to Shemitah. Leaving it alone. You're letting God take care of everything. We're stewards. Again, if I'm working in a place and the owner tells me, stand down, go on vacation, nothing to do with you anymore, don't worry about it. Okay. I do. I walk away. I let the owner take care of it. Nothing to do with me. He told me to go on vacation. Paid vacation. And all you have to do is review my manuals while you're on vacation. And, show me that you care that way. Show me love. Okay? Rabbi Kook, he wrote that Shemitah year is a year of economic equality, when we don't have to worry about parnasa, again, about livelihood, or any other worldly things that distract us. We can focus on learning Torah. So you see, everybody is coming back to the same thing for the most part, that the main goal of Shemitah is to, one, show our bitachon. Instead of talking about, like we learned yesterday from the Chazon Ish, Instead of talking about how much I believe in God and how much I trust God, show me. Show me you trust me, and leave the land, go, deal with it, put away your frustration. Don't worry, I'll take care of you, sort of concept, okay? And learn Torah. Don't just take the year off. And like I said, it's not the time to start watching videos and catching up on all those Stephen King things that you didn't read, or all the other books, the Dork Diaries. There's not the time.
Oh, what?
Dork Diaries, that's the kids' books. It's not the time to do that. It's the time to really get it, really strengthen your learning ability and everything else. Okay. Now, like I said this morning, actually, because I gave this this morning. It's good. That way I could do it faster for us. I'm only at 40 minutes right now. Okay, so there's a concept that we have in Israel, because what happened? Again, the chief rabbinate, knowing how people are, said is there a way out of this, out of Shemitah? So it's what we call a het mechira. So what happens is the rabbis divide, just like on Passover. When we sell our chametz, because let's face it, we're not allowed to own chametz on Pesach, right? So we have three choices. One, we can eat it all, consume it all, fine. That gets rid of it. I can give it away, give everything away, and that's also good. Or I can sell it. Now, originally the sale was for stores. You have a lot of produce, because people didn't have what we have. We have stores in our own house already. They didn't have that sort of thing, but maybe they did. As farmers, they may have had grain. Okay, so what do you do with it? So they got the rabbis. The rabbis figured out how to maneuver it so that the non-Jew will own it. And when that happens, it's not a wink, a funny sale. This is a real binding sale on Pesach. That so much so that what happens is the non-Jew buys it, fine, doesn't have to take ownership of it, just buys it in various ways. If the non-Jew comes to the end of Pesach, would say, I don't want to pay you for this, I refuse to pay you a dime. So I say, oh, fine, let me buy it back. No, I won't sell it to you either. I won't sell it to you. I'm not going to sell it to you. It's mine, but I'm not paying. Bring me to court. I don't care. I don't want to pay. I think you're charging too much. Okay? But meanwhile, it's his. So now, if a Jew would start to use that chametz, which we have not yet bought back, that non-Jew could sue us in court, have us arrested actually, for stealing his food. That's how strong that sale is. That's how real that sale is. It's not a fake sale. So also, the rabbis looked, okay, when does Shemitah apply? Shemitah applies when we're all living in the land of Israel. It's a biblical injunction. Okay? When we're not all living in the land of Israel, though, it's a rabbinic injunction. The whole Shemitah becomes rabbinic.
So how does that alter?
Oh, because when it's rabbinic, just like in Chametz and so on and so forth, I have more leniencies that I can work with. So what we do is we ultimately sell that land to a non-Jew, because if I don't own the land, I'm not obligated at all to keep Shemitah. I'm not obligated, even though it's the land of if I don't own the land of Israel, I'm not obligated to not work it. I'm not obligated to follow Shemitah. I can work the land, and I'm really the sharecropper for Tony. Okay.
So here
we don't deal with it, because we don't have Shemitah outside of Israel.
Okay.
So again, here you can plant all day long. Okay, we don't care about here. Only in Israel. So what they do is they find one lucky non-Jew. Okay, I'll leave it like that. Hamev Yavin at this point, because I don't want to say it publicly. And what happens is nobody knows who that non-Jew is, because that non-Jew could be killed. They would have figured out who it was. Okay. So I heard it's one non-Jew that they sell it to, the whole land. Okay. And the thing is, obviously at the end of the Shemitah year, we'll buy it back. Somebody asked me today, will he get a little profit? My son will get a little profit from it too. That was one thing. So, but that's how they would work it. So the religious people will use that to maintain their connections to the outside world, so they can still have exports going out, so they can support themselves. So somebody today asked, but doesn't that ruin your B'tachon Hashem? And I said, yeah, sure it does. you lose out the last concept. Certainly, I'm feeling what a poor person is. You're looking at Bitachon Hashem. Yeah, all that's true. You are losing something, but let's understand something. That when the rabbis came up with these leniencies, maybe Pesach, maybe the regular year, they were doing it because there was a love of the Jew. They wanted Jews to follow the Torah. The rabbis really care about us. They want the Torah. They want to follow the Torah. So what they did was they said, "Is there any way that we can help out? Otherwise, what could happen is people may break the Torah. If we don't give them some leniency, maybe they'll break the Torah. So I want to give them leniency. Doesn't mean I have to accept the leniency. Okay, when I get a leniency, it doesn't mean I have to follow it. I have the choice. I can't follow it. I don't have to follow it. But the leniency is a leniency. It's out there. So it's showing the Ahavas Yisrael. When we put up an Eruv around town, we all claim it's for us, the Orthodox, so we can wheel our kids to school, shul, and we can carry our notebooks and whatever we want to carry to shul. Fine. But think about all the non-religious Jews who live in our area who would be doing everything anyway. Now, at least when they carry their keys from the house to the car, they didn't break the halacha like that, okay? They break the halacha when they turn the car on, okay, fine. But if they're wheeling something outside, or they're carrying something outside, they're carrying their pocketbook, so it's muksa, big deal, okay? I know I'll be yelled for that, but so what? Muksa is muksa, okay? But otherwise, they're not breaking Shabbos because there's an Eruv. We've saved those people from transgressing a biblical injunction or rabbinic injunction sometimes, whatever it's going to be. That's what I'm saying. There's a love that the rabbis, that the Chazal, certainly Chazal and today's rabbis have heard. And I said it this morning too. Even the Reform, who when they came out with what they came out with all their leniencies, they didn't do it just because they said, "Oh, we're Reform, we can do whatever we want, pick and choose." No, there was a real desire to try to get the Jewish people who are so assimilated, try to get them back into the fold by whatever manner. I don't agree with what they did. I like their love of Israel. There was the Ahavas Yisrael there. I love that, but I don't agree with their procedures. I think that they were wrong there, because like I said this morning, if they would say you can't do it, most of their crowd wouldn't do it. It's only because the rabbi is saying it's good that they say, okay.
You sure about that?
Yeah. I should say 50%, not most. I'll give you 50%. Because many people will ask, why are you driving on Shabbos? Because the rabbi said you could. So if the rabbis would take that away, I don't know if they're still driving Shabbos. I can't answer that. But at least they couldn't blame it on the rabbi. Now they can blame it on the rabbis. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when I'm too kind, I'm being cruel. I have to say, this is what we do, okay? So like I said, but in general, just because I give a leniency doesn't mean you should take it. So if I live around the corner from the shul, doesn't mean I should take my car, even according to them. Conservative. Conservatives say if you live too far away, so you can drive to and from. Okay, fine. But they don't say if you're living down the street, you should drive your car because you're going to go shopping next. They would say that's forbidden. Okay? Even they would say that's forbidden. Not that there are people understand that, but they don't say that's what they would say. So we all have that love that we're supposed to have, and we try our best to make Judaism palatable to the people. But sometimes when bending over backwards, we break our backs, and it's not good for anybody. So like I said, so here when it came to the Heter Mechira, which not everybody accepted, not the whole rabbinic world accepted. The Chazon Ish was against it. Many others were against it. And so if you're an adherent of those rabbis, then when you see a Jew working on the Shemitah, they're transgressing the law. But the bottom line is, we have to be much more. We also have to have Ahavas Yisrael when looking at Jews and saying, look, if their rabbi, who was an Orthodox rabbi and was going according to Torah law, said that's permissible, okay, so your rabbi didn't agree, so you don't have to follow it. But they're following their Rav. Let them follow their Rav. And that's it. That's Ahavas Yisrael again. It's all under Ahavas. That's Ahavas Rav. We have to, Ahavas Yisrael, we have to have that. That's why I started from the beginning. If you really want Mashiach to come, we want to see our temple rebuilt, what we have to do is have Ahavas Chinam. We have to find a reason to love these people. Because we think that they're wrong. So what? Their rabbi says we're wrong. Okay.
We have Torah.
No, I'm saying I'm saying all Orthodox. That's why I'm looking at all the. I'm going from the Orthodox. When an Orthodox rabbi says this, A is permissible, even if I disagree, so what? I'm one opinion, he's one opinion. We're both coming from the same tradition. We're coming for the same thing. And in his mind, maybe in those conditions, he is correct. And that's how it usually works. When we say Shnei, what's the expression? That both these are the words of the living God. It means, at least the way Rashi wants to explain it, that if all conditions were met, we would both be in agreement, even though we're diverse opinions. But if everything was the same in both of our positions, we would agree with it. But since it's not the same, it's hardly ever the same from one place to the other, we have to adjudicate in a certain manner. So I not knowing what that other person is going through, or that person not knowing what I'm going through, and what I'm putting up with, or what I have to deal with, so I'm going to rule differently than that person. That's what it means. Whether you give the person the side of merit, you have to give dam the holy dam the cups of food. You have to judge every person's side of merit. That is avos chinam. So that's what we have to do.
Big job.
Yeah, we have to start it. It starts with us.